I keep remember every time I switch it off, my music goes. I was enjoying my elevator music, you know.
Intro is the only thing Elon Musk did on Twitter space that I love. Every other thing he has done since it's just useless. This show is awesome, man.
Dude,
Ah,
I was
how's your
enjoying my
day, man?
music. Man, my day was busy as hell, man.
Yeah,
I
mine too.
I didn't even get. I tell you what. I probably watched about 50 minutes of testing. I haven't seen
Ah,
because
okay.
I've
I did more than you. I could sneak in close to 3 hours of it. So underneath my
no.
browser, I just put it there. I pretended I was doing my research with my headphone, but I was actually listening to Formula One
I was
commentary.
I went I left when I left this morning. Left out. They just cleared up the red flag.
Ah,
So
okay,
so
okay, yeah,
I was
yeah,
watching a bit of it on my phone, but then I did the underground.
yeah.
Got by
Then
the
you
time
lost signals, basically.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
the time I
Okay.
got into our office, I was there for about 2 hours. Me and my coworker, he's going on holiday in the next couple of weeks, so
Oh,
he's just
okay.
showing me some stuff that he
Some
wants me
stuff to
to
say.
cover for him, and then I had to
Yeah.
move from there to go to another site, another one of our buildings, because
Ah,
um, I work in
yeah.
finance. I'm in the
Okay.
finance department, so we're having some finance clinic. We tend to move around the organization, so we get to familiarize ourselves with the whole
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
and other people get to know who's in the
Who
finance
you're
team.
working with? Yeah.
So I moved there. It was yeah, but I'm home now, man. I'm tired. I didn't even have time to have lunch, dude. That's yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
quite a day
So you
there.
see,
That's
my
quite a day.
throat. You see, I revealed my fun. I revealed myself to them, man. Do you see me without my throat mask? I revealed my true identity. I'm gonna change that to my profile picture.
Yeah, we add it to your
Yeah, that's
profile
gonna be my
picture.
new
Yeah.
profile picture. I'm gonna actually do a
Yeah.
poll and see if they vote that it should go up. I'm gonna put it up. But anyway, man, fill me in because I've been kind of like sneaking on Twitter to
Yeah,
find out
but
what's
for me,
going on.
it was the part of the I was mainly focused on what Mercedes was doing as opposed to if George was driving or Lewis was driving. Those were my
Hmm.
key. Like my key observation was at least they've engineered purposing out of this car, which is awesome because compared to last season's testing, this was way, 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 way better than what that allowed them to do. Then is from what I can see, they were basically testing the range of this car's setup today. How far can they push it? So, for example, the rear wing you were seeing in that car is the downforce level you see in a track like,
Yeah,
say,
that rear.
Monaco,
Yeah, I
Monaco,
noticed
for
that. I
example.
noticed that on the
Yeah,
launch spec,
Monaco, for
the
example.
rear
So
wing was huge.
huge. I think that's probably the heaviest rear wing they will have. This is I don't know. I'm still corrected on that, but that's Monaco level rear wing on a track like Bahrain, for example. Those two don't
Yeah,
mix. So I think what they were doing was trying to put a lot of load on this car and see how much they can set. But one of the problems the W13 had last year was that they actually have a very narrow window to set the car up. And even if they do that, still, a small. Lewis was saying at one point that you do something so small and the car drastically
yeah.
moved the other way. So they were busy for today. What they were actually doing. So what I noticed was they will, for example, George will come out from the garage, then he will do some runnings around, and then you see the delta time plus 3 seconds behind what the other things were doing, which is fine. And then he goes back, he come back, is plus four. I'm thinking that's not the fact that George or Lewis is not consistent. It's probably they're adding more load to it. They're trying to see how far they can push the car and then
To
get
see if it
some
would induce
performance.
the porpoising,
Yeah, how far they can
because
go with that. They just probably correlate
because
the data from the sims and other
I did
places.
read someone saying what they also think they were doing was they're back to they're gathering data with this setup to correlate it to what they did last year at the same time. So
Hmm.
it wasn't a matter of okay, let's try and optimize, try different setups and so on. Let's just run it in a basic
Hmm.
configuration and see if the numbers,
And compare
yeah,
data.
and see if
Yeah,
the numbers what
yeah,
they're getting today matches what they have
mm,
on the
yeah,
system on
yeah.
the data. And I saw someone post a tweet with TOTO's comments, and he's like saying, "Well, last year this time they literally knew they weren't in,
Do you
they
have
had no
problem? Yeah,
chance of winning a race, but
yeah,
this year,
yeah.
after what they've seen so far, he's happy and he thinks they're going to be there or thereabouts. So which is,
which means
yeah,
that's what I'm happy about, because it then before means that they can actually develop the car organically the way you should develop a car over a
yeah.
season, as opposed to last year trying to solve a problem with purposing
So
and all.
they've so I guess it proves that they actually understood what was the issue last year and they've actually rectified the issues this year. Granted, the
I
reason the, the
can.
reason the side of the floor by the extra 15 millimeters and the venturi tunnels and so on, that helps with the porpoising. But then I see someone said the Ferrari were porpoising.
Yeah,
But
so
but
that's an interesting
but
observation
can you
too.
but
Yes,
is it
because Ferrari was
porpoising or they were
proposing.
just like because it's a bumpy track?
No, they were. You can see that they were proposing. Ferrari was proposing. I think another team. When you there was a tweet that Bryson shared where he, because if you want to see proposing, go to turn
Yeah, I
12. I
saw
think
that.
it's naturally loaded. You can, yes. So that happened with Ferrari, even on the straight. I think because Ferrari's proposing doesn't affect them, there was no need to actually engineer it out of the car. Basically, unlike Mercedes, because whatever they were getting from the car last year, purposely was just masking it up for them, so they couldn't tell which one was purposely
Yeah, because that,
or
that
which
that
one
was
was.
one of the things that confused me last year is that um, the Ferrari was porpoising like crazy, but it was still quick.
Mhm.
And you
Exactly.
think, okay,
Mhm.
the Mercedes is porpoising, but it was rubbish. So
It
okay,
was
what's
it
going
was
on? How is that? Does that
what's
make
going
any
on.
sense?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
what I've seen so far, like I said, I haven't really watched much of the of testing. I'm
Mm,
working from home tomorrow, so I'll definitely get to see the whole thing. It
okay.
seems like they've had a good start, and I saw
Oh
and I
yes,
saw the straight line speed comparison. They were doing like 320 without DRS. The Red Bull was doing three.
and
Yeah,
with that heavy rear wing attachment, so that was even a positive for me. I think everybody at Mercedes right now will breathe a collective sigh of
yeah,
relief that whatever they did over this winter actually worked. With if it was just to eliminate purposing from the car alone, that's a huge engineering feat for them.
but
So then from there
But
they can
remember, we
just
said
find ways
I
to
said it.
optimize the car.
I
Yeah.
kept saying it. Look, you don't win 8 championships in a row by being lucky. You have to work, and these
Yeah.
guys aren't stupid. And
They're not.
and this is last year was a sign that showed us God has a sense of humor because, like I said, there's no way God could allow these guys to build a W11 and then W11 and 12 and then turn around and give us a W13. Like,
Build a
he had to be
debut
playing a
13.
joke on
Yeah.
us because
That's an
you know what I
anomaly.
mean. That's
Yeah.
just. But
An exception.
the
Yeah.
only I think the only problem for them now is that it's now a game of catch up. I think if they had
Mhm.
started last year with how they've started this year, I think it would have been a
Mhm.
different outcome.
A different ball
And
game
yeah,
entirely.
but now you're talking about you're gonna have to try and catch Red Bull, who we know
Yeah.
they're gonna improve. They've made gains, and even if they didn't make any gains, the advantage they had was still quite a decent amount. I remember the first
Mhm.
place I said I think I'd be happy if if the first race we're like 2 3 tenths or four
Three
tenths
times that. Yeah, you
off
said.
Red
Yeah.
Bull. I can
Yeah.
work with that because given coming from
Mhm.
where they're coming from, it's a lot to catch up. And you're talking about you're chasing a moving target. I
A moving
Yeah.
target is.
So
Yeah.
I'm coming to you in a second backstage. So where they are now. I like I said, I haven't really seen much, but from what I've seen across the time, and obviously
Well, the car
you still
behaved
get the
way, way
you're still
better.
getting the usual
Yeah.
people panicking and all sort of this and that. But I don't know what they expect. I don't know why they thought Mercedes were going to come and just like
I watched
pull up
the
three.
W for 13
Yeah,
last year. Yeah, if that car comes out from the last corner, it is the rear end is twerking every time. But you don't see that in the W14 today. You can see the stability is there, even when you have gust of wind, just a little wobble here and there. But basically, you can see that the car is more stable, and under braking is also more stable compared to. So that's a very good place to start for the
definitely.
Mercedes.
And I think that's what they were looking for. They were looking for
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
some.
Hmm.
I think that for
A
them, the first
baseline,
day was
yes.
about okay,
Hmm.
let's let's see what if our simulations matches to what on
Yep.
track matches or simulation, and if it does, then okay, they can breathe. As you said, they can breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, yes, we're on the right track. Let's now
Yeah.
start looking at add in more performance and see how quickly they can claw the
Performance,
gap
yeah.
back. All right, hold on. Backstage. Thanks, Kingsley. Backstage. What's up, man?
Hey
What's up?
Thanos, hey everyone, hey Kingsley. Yeah, good. I've enjoyed watching testing today. As you guys have been saying, it's been a solid start for Mercedes. I think they've had a really steady day. It's been reliable. I think that's definitely one of the most important things. The last thing they wanted is for the engine to blow up and the suspension to not work. And they
I see.
that's the last thing they would have
I see
wanted.
what you did. I see what you did. I see what you did. Good one.
Yeah,
That idiot judge. Oh, God. Yeah, go on.
So they've had a really good solid day. I mean, in fact, all 10 teams really. I know Aston had a bit of a dodgy start when the car went four corners and stopped, and then I know McLaren had an issue with the front right, but other than that, all the teams have had a good start in terms of
So the
reliability.
front right was still braking system, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were having to put tape on the braking system, but
Yeah, and the same problem we having last year too. Brake, and brake
they
again.
think it was something to do. What was it that I think it was Buxton was saying that apparently it was an issue with manufacturing, but it's something that they can resolve by the race next week.
Okay.
But even then, Lando was looking quick. He was still looking relatively quick in comparison to the other midfield teams. If we're taking the times with a massive pinch of salt. But yeah, I think George and Lewis both look comfortable behind the car. The porpoising does seem to have disappeared, which is good. Um, I think they're probably going to be a little bit behind Red Bull. And I think the thing we have to remember with Red Bull is that their development cycle or their development ceiling is so much lower this year. A, because of the World Championship and losing runs because of that, but also because of the penalties they've received as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there is room for both them and Ferrari to catch Red Bull up because Ferrari looked quick despite the porpoising
Which has been,
that they were
which was
having.
the same for them last year. But again, the
Exactly, yeah.
problem here is we're talking about Ferrari, a team that's historically has been indifferent. Put it that way. You can't tell which Ferrari you're going to get on a race
Yeah.
weekend, much less an entire season. So you know,
I think this season will be different
I
for
don't
them.
know.
That's
I
just
don't
my
know.
my personal thinking.
We've
Yeah.
we've
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Go on back, say.
with Ferrari, they were with Ferrari, they were saying that they're going to bring a lot more upgrades to the car this year as well. So because they did stop their development quite early last year, but they do seem to have a bigger package of upgrades ready to go. Because I think they are thinking with the championship more in mind. I
But
suspect.
why?
So
But
it
here's
will.
my question: Why did they stop the development early last year? Well,
Because of
yeah,
reliabilities of
but
the engine.
okay,
They
but
couldn't
okay,
perform that
yeah,
car with the
but
engine. Yeah. There was no point
you still
bringing.
could gain performance otherwise in other aspects. You
It will be masked because if you're running your engine at the optimal position you want to run it, then you can bring development. If it doesn't work, you know it's not working. So, if, for example, you bring development and it's not working, you can't tell if it's that upgrade or is the engine that
Yeah,
you can actually
but
tune
you
off
can
to
have some
optimize it.
idea because you already know you're not running the engine at. Well, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I get your
Yeah.
point.
Cost cap as well. We can't forget the cost cap.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm always indifferent to Ferrari because they've always flattered to the seat. They turn up and they look good, but then you know,
I think you secretly like Ferrari, but you're just annoyed that they don't win. That's what I think.
sorry, no, who secretly like
Yeah.
Ferrari?
You,
Did this still just
I
tweet a
think you like
puppet?
them.
What the fuck is this supposed to be? Did you?
Oh
Oh,
God.
what's this? Who's this Apex dude? Because what the hell is this in my what? I'm a bit. Did you see that guy under the this thing?
Oh yeah,
What
I
the hell
see
is
it.
that
Yeah.
supposed to be?
No.
NFT.
What did he?
Huh?
What did he write? I didn't see
It's
that.
an
Yeah,
NFT.
yeah, but
It's an
yeah,
NFT. I got right.
you
Fair enough.
wanna do you wanna do an NFT gorilla with Lewis Hamilton? Don't you think that's kind of a you know what I mean? Think about it.
Ah,
Think
okay.
about it. If you go,
Yes.
You're pushing it.
if
Yeah.
you're not pushing it, you've pushed it.
Yeah.
You don't use a gorilla to represent a black person in an NFT. Come on, that just like come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Not good.
dude,
Yes.
dude,
The
fix
sport
your shit
is.
up. Don't do that. Yeah. Anyway,
This
sorry,
is.
Baxter, go on, Karen.
Yeah, one last thing to say is I think that the preseason rumours of Aston making progress seem to be true. Alonso was looking quick. I think the time he did was probably more of a glory run, but he made some mistakes in a second lap that would have been quicker than Max's quickest lap. So I think when he gets that car hooked up, I think that Aston is going to be fast, and I think they're definitely the team that have made the biggest gain. Certainly from the first day of testing. Obviously, we've got 2 more days to see. Fernando's in the car all day tomorrow. But yeah, I think Aston
I was in all
Aston are
day
going to be
tomorrow
quick.
if he was in today. So
No,
what about Djokovic?
Djokovic is on standby.
Yeah, but wasn't Djokovic
Yeah,
in today?
Djokovic is on standby, but
Okay.
Fernando's all day tomorrow.
Yeah,
Remember-
that was a glory run. But in saying that, I tweeted it. You can see this morning. You can see why. Who's that? Who's that? Oh, dude, meet him. You can see why Red Bull were fighting so hard to keep Dan Fallows out of Aston's reach, because he was pretty much Adrian Newey's second. He was the era guy at Red Bull, because in the last couple of years, Red Bull has lost the two best era guys. They lost Peter Pedromo to McLaren, and now they lost Dan Fallows to Aston. So, but like I said, I mean, they're going to develop some way of keeping Adrian Newey alive until he's 200 years old. Because if he leaves that team's pretty much going to be defunct. It's dead. It's not going anywhere, because I don't think they have anybody who can replace him. I've read somewhere that, this year he'll only be focusing 50% on the team, because he's looking at working with the road car project and so on. I'm like, if Agent New is only 50% committed to them this year, they're gonna. I can see it not going so well, because they can't replace him. I remember what happened in Turkey 2020. Was it 2020 or 20? Yeah,
2020, yeah,
when he
2020.
didn't turn up, and everyone was like,
Yeah,
the reason why they performed so bad was because New wasn't there. Which then, if
new
that's the
is not
case,
alright.
then
He couldn't. They couldn't set up the car. It wasn't even
yeah.
it was designing. The setup was the problem.
So it's
He wasn't around. They couldn't set up the car. That was crazy,
Yeah,
man.
which is kind of odd that, But anyway, that's not neither here or there. I'm not really worried focusing on Red Bull per se, but I want to see have any of the Merc drivers come out and giving statements as yet, because I want to hear what they have to say more than anything else. I know Toto has given his piece and said, you know what, he's happy and they feel. But I want to hear the drivers, because I think you can tell more from them than you can tell anybody else. I'm one also given they only have 3 days left. There's only 3 days of testing this year. Are they gonna? I know Mike Elliott said they had an upgrade package in the wind tunnel. Are they gonna bring that to? What are they gonna do tomorrow? Are they gonna go with a different rear wing tomorrow? Because that shit looks like a Bondo, and I think that's
That's
the problem.
oh
And
yeah, that's what
I
I
think
think
that's
of
the
it.
exact same wing they ran the whole of last season.
Mm-hmm.
So
That wing is heavy. Yeah, it's a load now.
yeah,
That's basically.
thanks for the update. I'm pleasantly pleased. I can live with that, because
Yeah.
the biggest worry for everyone was, will the car at least look like it's a racing car?
Mm-hmm.
Look better than the W13, which thankfully it does. So.
Oh,
And,
absolutely, it
and
does
and you
better.
know these guys, when it comes to developing a car, they know to develop a car, because
You can't develop
yeah,
Mercedes. They know the development they bring to a car. It works like magic. If they have something's in the works at the Winton there, I think they already have a direction they want to go right
because
now.
I
I'm
mean, if
telling
you
you.
look at last year, Silverstone, case in point, they brought an upgrade to
Yeah,
Silverstone, and they pretty much said they didn't test it. They
yeah.
just came up with the idea
On
and just
vibes,
printed,
hmm went
built
for
it,
it.
and put
Yeah.
it in the car, and it worked. So they didn't really test. So
The previous year, 2021, Silverstone 2, they brought upgrade, and that was the only upgrade they brought that took them to the final of that year,
yeah, I think
basically.
So I think when it comes to a development race, I think they can match Red Bull toe for toe for
Yep,
toe. So but
absolutely.
the question is, how much more
How much
performance will their
deficit do you have
upgrades
behind
bring
it? Mm.
compared to the Red Bull? And that's the thing. And that's why I said, because you're chasing a moving target, it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. Definitely
I
supposed.
I would go on a limb and say that I don't think they're too far behind the Red Bull. I don't think so.
Two to
I
three
think
tenths. I can live. I can.
yes,
I'll be
they're not too far
ecstatic
behind
about.
the Red Bull at all.
I'll be. I
From
see.
what the
Oh,
car was doing today,
I saw
yes.
Bradley tweet something about a long run where on the C3 Max, I think that
Hmm.
was the medium. He did average 130 point something, and Lewis was basically on the harder compound average was 8 tenths slower over the stint.
Yeah,
So I'm thinking,
yeah.
and
Mm.
you know, Mercedes, they tend to, whenever they do testing, notice you can tell with them, they never test on soft compound tires. They either
No,
go for the medium or the hard tires.
the
And
hard
that's what
tires.
they
Yeah.
do all the baseline work on. So, you know, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, indeed.
Fingers crossed.
I'm more excited today than I was a year ago
Yeah,
when they tested
you
him.
know,
It was crazy.
so hopefully, hopefully the fans aren't too disappointed because some people, a lot of people expected that they were going to turn up and like top
No,
the
no, no. If
timesheets.
you watch that, if you watch the today's testing and you come up with a different thought process about what happened, I don't know how to tell you you were watching the back of your screen. If you are, I'm not even comparing Mercedes of the W14 with W13 at all because they are not in the same league. I'm comparing this car with the top cars, the Ferraris and the Red Bulls that were there today. Even Max didn't with the lap time he didn't have that car under control. He still had some, twerking and wobbling here and
And
there
his
on the track.
fastest lap
So
was done on the hard tires, which was what 8 tenths of the best overall time so far.
yeah,
So
who
yeah,
Lewis?
it's I saw.
No, he did. I think it was in media. He did
No,
six. Is
they
it
had
810? No, six
they
thirty.
had it
Fastest lap was on the
was on the
mediums.
medium. So
Okay, to the
why they
mediums.
have
Okay.
it the
Yeah.
hard next to it?
That's on the long runs. He was
Okay,
doing
okay,
hard
okay.
time long runs at the end of the
Okay,
session.
cool. All
Yeah.
right, then. That's not bad. All right, hold on. I've got someone here. What's this common part screen? What's up?
Hey everyone.
Kaya.
I'm sure as you can tell by my accent, I was not going to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to
Where you
start
Mexican?
watching
You
test.
Mexican?
No, I'm American. I refuse to get up that
Polish?
American. I refuse
Okay,
to get
cool.
up that early. So I only caught about.
Boo! You're not committed to the cause. Sorry, disappointing.
I only really got about maybe 30 to 45 minutes to see the last 30 to 45. But I guess I should caveat. I think we all are of the same mindset. Of course, it's fun to talk about testing, but keep in mind that I wouldn't say that testing is going to give us 100% of the results. So, I think that's optimism. I think the car, Merc in particular, looked really good today, but I'm excited for the season. My goodness. I think knowing the fact that Lewis was doing a lot of the development work last season, man, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm like, I've been counting down. It's almost there, but I am really, really ready for this season. That car, I think it already looks
Well,
much more improved than the W13. So
compared to the
definitely looking forward.
W13, that
Oh yeah,
W14 looks like the W11. Put
yeah,
it that,
yeah.
Yeah,
put it that
that's
way.
an apt
And I know
But
people were
comparison.
saying
Yeah.
like the purposing thing, but like keep in mind that track in particular, I don't think it's been like, you know, paint whatever the word is for it, like repurposed or, like sort of
resurfaced.
cleaned up essentially. So yeah, there's gonna be a few little bumps. I think it might have been like
Oh,
what
it's a very
turn.
bumpy track. It has
Yeah,
never been a
exactly. Like it's
smooth
not gonna
track.
be
It's very
perfect, but
bumpy.
the fact that it didn't look like it was on the car didn't look like it was on a trampoline for the first time, it was nice. So yeah, I just wanted to pop up in here. I've got to drop off for a work meeting, but just wanted to say like, keep in mind everyone, testing is great. It's super fun, but you know, it
Take
doesn't
with a
give us
pinch.
all of the
Take
answers.
you can
Exactly,
take
grain
it
of salt.
pinch of salt, but not the
Yeah,
Red
pinch of
Bull. The
salt.
Red Bull
Exactly.
is you can definitely tell the Red Bull is just it's hooked up, it's working, but we just don't know how big their advantage is at the moment. Next week, Q3, when everything is turned up to the max, then we'll know how much they have in hand from how much they're done.
Q3 last year was what? 130.2 or something like that.
I,
So today they already do
I,
132. That's two
I
and a
don't
half
even know.
seconds behind.
But in saying that, man, this morning they nearly they basically ruined my start to the year already, man. I'm listening to the commentary and to hear Julian Palmer saying Mercedes didn't want Nick de Vries. I'm thinking, where was he supposed to go? Where were they supposed to put him? They got him a
reserve
they got him
driver.
a drive in Formula One. Every single
Yeah,
the drivers, Ocon and De Vries, who've been associated with Mercedes, are driving in Formula One. Granted, they're not driving
exactly.
for Mercedes, but they're driving in Formula One.
But that's Mercedes
They
for them.
look out
Yeah.
for these guys, and they manage to get them drives. And then I had to listen to the whole Will Buxton, Palmer, what's that? Lawrence Barato wasn't in this.
Morris came
He
in
came
later.
in
He
late,
wasn't there at the beginning.
crusty,
Yeah,
talking about Minister of Defense, check out the work
of
he did
defense. Yeah,
in, and I'm thinking,
yeah.
are
You
you
saw that tweet I did. They were actually just saying it out loud,
Max
like
won the championship
that
because
this
of
guy is
what
a
he did.
number 2 driver. Yes, he
And
has
then
to.
basically,
He has
yeah,
to play ball. Otherwise, with Ricardo there, they're gonna show him the way. I'm like, why is it when it comes to Lewis, he has to have the most perfect teammate to run him
look,
off track, but
the
when it comes
situation
to other
Lewis is
driver,
this: Lewis must have a teammate that challenge him. Every other driver should have a teammate that supports them.
that will support them. Yes, support them.
You're
That was
supposed to be their
crazy. They were
support
just
system.
saying it casually as if
You
it
know
was
what?
nothing.
I'd never been concerned about Lewis having a teammate that can challenge him because
No, no, not at all.
for me, I
No.
think if you have a teammate that can challenge you on an even playing field, no one's being handicapped, and you whoop their ass, then no one can talk shit. No one can say, "Oh, you got
Mm-hmm.
there," because that's one of the things they kept saying with regards to Bottas is, Bottas was just Lewis wing. Bottas was not a wingman
He wasn't a
by
pushover
right.
enemy.
He
Yeah,
became a
yeah,
wingman because he basically got outperformed. So you
yeah,
know he has always been given the equal opportunity to do the same thing. Everything there was nothing was hidden. But when you look at Perez and Max, it's not the case. And again, that's always been how Red Bull has operated since they had a lineup with Seb and Weber. It's always been a case of,
yeah.
okay, one guy's or is going to be our
They
priority.
they basically just push one guy in front, and then the other
And the thing is,
the
and
job is to
here why I
support
don't
the job.
like it because those guys are just that much better than the teammate. Why handicap your teammate? Just give them a fair shot and let the best
You
man go
know,
there. Because I mean, you could develop the car in the direction of Checo, and Max would still beat. Max would still
yeah,
beat him because
exactly.
Max is just
Mm-hmm.
better than him. It's not.
It's
It's
better.
not
Yeah,
hyperboard.
mm.
It's a known fact.
It's better. Of course,
But
it's better.
I
Yeah.
mean, how they run the team is how they run the team. So that's not for me to say. All right, Kingsley, because since you watch most of it, and Bax, you guys watch most of it. Give me a rundown of the other teams. What about I'm gonna go with Nick and what's that freaking team name? AlphaTauri. Who was in it today? Him or
It was both of them. So Yuki went in the morning, and then
Yeah.
it was Nick in the afternoon. They were steady but not great, and they were porpoising quite a lot as
oh
well.
god.
So what you would expect from AlphaTauri, sort of towards the back, but I think Williams in particular have seemingly have made a bit of progress.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be them and Haas sort of in a little battle at the back. If we're taking today as an indication.
Yeah, I think Yuki's gone. This is Yuki's last year in Formula One. If he gets outperformed by Nick, which I think he will, I think that's going to be it for him. And it's sad, but at the end of the day, this is a performance. If you're not performing, you're not supposed to be here. And we've not seen as likable as Yuki is. It's not about likes. It's about how you perform, and he has not been performing since he's been in the sport. You literally can't pick a handful of races where you say, "Yep, Yuki really stood out." You can't, and it's a bit
Yeah.
sad that's gonna happen to him. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's been here since what? This is what his third season. This is gonna be his third,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
he hasn't looked any different to his first year. If anything, he seems to be going backwards. And
He's going back.
any hopes he had
But
of
again, I think I think how do I put it? So it doesn't sound. I think he was. I think where he was putting too much pressure on himself. Let me put it this way. So at the end of the day, a lot of at the later part of last year he was a bit better than when the first season and then the first part of last year and all those things. So in a way, uh, maybe the way they handled it at the beginning was wrong. From everybody telling him what to do, he shouts too much on the radio. Whether it's a cultural thing, I don't know, but all of that probably affected him. And if you check his performance towards the middle part of that, he was a bit consistent. And at least he wasn't crashing the car. Let's just put that way.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't crashing the car. He was probably finishing races, and then if the car stalls, it was not his fault. It was just the car breaking down at the end of the day, as opposed to when he first. I think that they might give him one more shot at it after this year. If I mean, the phrase beats him, that exposes him in a way, but I don't know. I don't think that will majorly just ask make them to cut him out of the team completely. I think they'll still give him 1 more year or 1 more
Yeah,
year to
but
get
how
a shot.
many? I mean, this is year 3, and you're
Yeah,
talking about, and if the Red Bull junior drivers in F3 and F2 perform admirable next year, if one of them goes on to win F2,
mm,
Red Bull are going to look to move him on. They're going to look
yeah,
to
but
move him on because he's been there 3 years, and if he hasn't shown any progress whatsoever, and like I said, if Nick comes in and Nick actually puts the beast and beats him properly, then
mm.
you can kind of understand why they
Yeah,
say,
but if he
yeah, you
beats,
need to
that's
move
I
on
understand. Yeah,
because
if he beats him properly, yeah. But
you're
I
not.
think they will be matched. I don't think he will beat him that much. I think they will
And
probably be
I
matched.
and like I said, it's probably sounds bad, but I genuinely think the Honda link has kept him there for 3 years. Honestly,
Yes,
I think the Honda link has kept him there for 3 years.
yeah,
I think
you're probably
without
right.
that link,
He
truthfully,
probably
I
would
think without
be.
that link, I don't think he would have even been promoted to Formula One.
He probably would have been promoted, but I can see a part where with how ruthless Red Bull are, they could probably yank him out in the middle of the season and just say, "Go, we don't want you anymore," and then
Yeah,
put someone else.
I mean,
Yeah,
when did Max come into Formula One? 2015 or 2016?
15.
2015. Red Bull literally fired the driver lineup for 2014, which was Vern, and I can't remember who else was his teammate. And Vern did really well in 2014, and they just said nah, and just fired both of them and brought in Sainz and Max. So
yeah.
they're that sort of team. All right, Rory, what's up?
Hello, Thomas. I hope you had a good day and everyone else in the space. Yeah, I just watching testing. The only part of testing I got to watch was the afternoon sessions. And going on with the other teams, like, I know McLaren had the brakes issues, which last year as well, manufacturing issues. Aston, we don't know what stopped them how they stopped in the car. The reason why Red Bull's only issue today was a rear jack failure, and that was it. Ferrari porpoising, and AlphaTauri. Haas were front locking. Both drivers were locking their brakes, going into each corner, every corner basically, especially turn one. I think they're going to have a step backwards this year. It's going to be, for the bottom, it's going to be Williams and Haas. I think, yeah, it's taking tests to pinch of salt, but I think Mercedes are looking better. They're not porpoising. Actually, I thought the Ferrari looked a bit stiff
Holy
today.
shit! Oh, sorry to cut you. I just, I'm sorry, people.
No, it's okay.
I'm just deviating a bit. I'm actually watching Sky Sport and just saw pop up that John Motson died. Like, what the
Yeah,
shit, dude? 2023 is a really fucked up has a fucked up start to the year. Sorry. Carry on, Rory.
No, I saw that news. Heartbreaking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else? Yeah. Testing commentary was terrible today. I fell asleep listening. The only highlight was only Anthony Davidson doing a Crofty impersonation.
yeah. That
I
was
heard that.
hilarious.
I heard that.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you know
hilarious.
which team I fear for this year? Truthfully,
Mm.
McLaren.
In a
Yeah,
bad way or
A
a good
bad
way?
way.
yeah, in a bad way.
A bad way.
Yeah.
I've got a
Mm.
bad feeling about them this year, and I think it. If your team principal is coming out on the day you're launching your car and saying, you know what, you're not happy, and you don't think you basically wrote off your season before you've even seen the car. I don't know. I just have a
I think
bad
what
feeling about
was
McLaren.
amusing for me was during their run, the 100-kilometer run, they were basically the video that they put out. They basically just blurred the
Yeah, they blurred the
floor,
floor.
and then today the car shows up and there's nothing. I didn't see anything that innovative they were hiding at the end of the day. So maybe there's something I
But
didn't see it.
it's not about innovation, but I just think the team. I mean, they've lost their team principal. Was it Seidel left last year to go to Alpha?
Audi
Al-
McLaren, yeah.
Alpha Audi. I mean, the year before, I don't know. I just don't see
I think at
McLaren
some point
making any
they
progress
will
forward.
start asking questions the direction Zach is taking.
And then I saw the news, yesterday about Zach Brown went to see Red Bull about possible
Engine.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
After those cost cap comments, he just goes to Red Bull.
Forget even the cost cap comments. Porsche's out there, for Christ's sake. Porsche's out there. Honda is out there. Because Honda, obviously the Honda Red Bull partnership, that's done for
Yeah,
2020.
it's gone.
That's gone, right?
It's gone.
And given that Honda is registered as to be in a supply to be a supplier for 2020, dude, get on your knees. Zach, get on your knees. Walk 3,000 one of them Honda big boys to get back on a factory deal or something. But Red Bull, come on, and you've got Porsche out there. Dude, I don't know. I just.
How do you walk back that relationship
Look,
with Honda? Was
it
irreparably
can be
damaged?
fixed. It can be fixed.
Of course, it can be fixed.
It can be
But the
fixed.
conditions, what happened? Maybe the conditions. How are we not sure they've actually
Honda,
gone back first to ask for it, and they were turned
unless
down.
Honda, Zach Brown offered Honda 50% of McLaren racing team.
Yeah, but that's if Honda wants a team. You know what I mean? And I don't think do they really want a team, because if they wanted a team, they probably could have tried. Yeah, they would have. You know, they probably could have tried and see if they could get AlphaTauri. They could have tried to buy AlphaTauri.
Is it not ironic that their motto was fiercely forward?
Who?
McLaren's motto was fiercely forward.
Where? Into a brick wall.
In F1 to go up the grid, basically.
That's fiercely forward into a brick wall, because they're not going anywhere. McLaren, since Lewis has left, have just basically fallen off a cliff. They've just been going backwards. They in 2021 they looked kind of better, but then that was just like,
a flash in the pan.
Yeah, granted, Lando was the only non-Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari driver to get a podium, but they didn't look like they were normal. I mean, they got beaten to fourth in the championship by Alpine.
Yeah.
Granted, it's only one person was scoring points for
that
McLaren.
tells you but Ricciardo didn't perform last year at all.
I don't know.
That points was hurting by Lando. So
I have no confidence in McLaren. I see them basically as a team that's just now they're really stuck in no man's land. They don't know where they're going.
Do you know what? You have a car last year that was consistently having a brake problem. You would think that's the first thing they would try to engineer out of that car. And they come back to 2023 and they still having the same problem. And then how do you even fix that?
That seems like a manufacturing problem.
But then the manufacturing problem, they even if they're suppliers to them, that's one of the things the team principal we're doing, making sure that everything is done correctly. If you are repeating the same problem of last year, this year, you're still going to have that problem going forward. Granted, this is just testing. If that follows them into the first race of the season, the first quarter, they'll be having a hard time trying to deal with that on its own before looking for performance in the car, which is basically non-existent at the moment. So it's crazy.
Okay,
at some point, they'll start talking. I think Zach Brown, maybe because I don't know.
Zach Brown is not the man.
At some point, they
just
start asking questions. Is this the right guy to take McLaren to the next level?
And the thing is, McLaren are stretching themselves too thin. They found themselves in everything now. They're in Formula One, Formula E,
Everywhere. Yeah.
IndyCar, Formula Extreme E. Like, I
Yeah,
think they're
everywhere.
stretching
Yeah.
themselves too
Hmm.
thin. And I guess probably most of these things they've gone into because, they're trying to find places for the staff because of
Where the stuff will
the
come from.
cost cap. So they have to move people around, to keep them in jobs and so on. But I don't know. I have no confidence in McLaren whatsoever right now. They just
Not at
seem,
all.
and I don't think Zach Brown is the man to
I
lead them
don't. Me
back.
neither. I don't think so.
It
Yeah.
needs it need as um, it needs someone like a Ron Dennis. Sorry, it needs that sort of structure. Someone who's like he's no, it's not all fun and games and laughter
It's
and whatnot.
ruthless.
He's
Ruthless.
ruthless. You know what I
Someone
mean?
who's
If you look
ruthless. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
remember, he said it when he left Mercedes to go to Honda. He said, "Look, you're not going to win a championship being a customer team. So,
And that's
so
true. Most of the
let's
time.
go."
Yeah.
So he went out and got that. They got that Honda deal, and they lost that Honda deal because of one person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now look where they are. And they left Honda. Honda went to Red Bull, worked with Red Bull. They won 2 championships
They basically developed the Honda engine
and
to the
gave it to
point where
Red
it
Bull.
become like, and then they gave it away. That's it.
So, all right, hold on. Hold on. NK, what's up, my brother? Don't swear into the place.
NK is not cursing today. No, he's
Mm,
happy.
No, I'm here.
yeah.
I'm fucking here. Alrighty
Oh
then.
God.
Yeah. For fuck's sakes. Yes, yes.
Oh
I
God.
saw that car. Hey, it's good. It's
Mm-hmm.
good, right? And I can guarantee you one thing. I don't give a shit about the championship this year, right? As long as we go back to just winning races. You know? Let's win races this season, and next year, once we fucking sorted it out, we can go for our eighth. But I
No,
can
no,
bet you right
NK. I
now.
want
No,
championship
no, no,
this
no,
year.
no,
I
no.
just
NK,
want
no,
races,
no,
man. We
no.
want
I
champion.
want to
I don't
win
want to
this
wait
year.
until.
I don't
I
want
don't
to
want to
wait.
give Max 3 in a row, dude.
No,
But
no,
that
no, no, no,
Red
no,
Bull
no, no.
looks good, eh?
I don't want to
Yeah,
give
that
Max.
the
I
Red
don't
Bull is
want Max
planting,
coming
man.
to the 3 in a row
Don't get it twisted. I hate
club,
that
man.
that that
No,
that that
I
piece of
don't
shit.
want
No,
Like
that.
no,
you
no.
won't believe, but he's still in it. Hey, he's there's nothing you can do. Hey, that
Oh,
flipping
Oh
piece
yeah.
of shit still in it with that car. But the most important thing, that Mercedes looks good, but not great. But remember, with Lewis, we don't need a great car. We need a good car because he's great. Then we know we're gonna win some races, right?
if you get it within if you get it within a tenth to 2/10 of the Red Bull, I think that's something we can work with. That's you can win with
A
that because
championship with that kind of gear.
again on occasions like that you see where a driver makes the difference. All right, thanks, NK. I've got Clinton. What's up?
Uh, good. I don't know what time zones we're all in. So, anyways, good day. I
When
guess so.
you're
I'll use an Australian lingo. Good day. Um, yeah. So as far as F1 testing goes, the W14, it looks like a beast. It sounds like a beast.
is it a beast
Uh,
or is it a pussycat?
yeah, and I
It's a
think.
black beast.
Well, I think that it's been. I was listening to Toto Wolff quite carefully and George Russell very carefully. I do think that Mercedes are sandbagging right now. Um, and Toto, went so far as to say that today's testing session was just about making sure that the car was balanced correctly. And his words were, it wasn't about performance. So we know the car has performance.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is I didn't see any porpoising on the car at all. So I think that's fascinating. Um, and it's not just about the porpoising and the suspension side of it. The aerodynamics, obviously, people here are aware of the redesigned front wing. So I think that both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell are going to have a great car this season. I think the car I'm most excited to watch, and I'm not. So let me put my bias out there. So I am a Mercedes guy, but the car that I'm most excited to watch is probably the Alfa Romeo from an engineering perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because when Alfa Romeo released the photographs of their car,
What happened?
You're
their
breaking.
What happened?
yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize. When they released
You,
their photographs from a couple of weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, the Alfa Romeo, I was really, really impressed with the jagged rectangular left and right sides of the floor,
mm-hmm,
because that looked, from an engineering perspective, really interesting. And I can't help but wonder if Alfa Romeo has done that in order to maybe seal the floor, maybe to do something around air turbulence for the Venturi tunneling through the floor. And then the other reason I think the Alfa Romeo looks really interesting is the back deck of the car. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the rear deck is significantly wider than last year's car, and it
mm-hmm.
looks like it's being done so to sort of redirect the airflow to the rear wing. So for me, the two cars I'm most interested in is the W14 and the Alfa Romeo. I think Red Bull, it's basically more or less more of the same. And, and I think Ferrari will be interesting too to see whether or not the stories that were circulating a month ago that Ferrari had found, 20, 25, 30 additional horsepower is legit. Because if
I
that's,
think that's a misleading story. I think what basically they didn't find any new power. What it basically meant is because of the reliability issues they had
they
last year,
had
they
to
couldn't
down
run the
tune it.
engine at the optimum
That's
um,
right.
optimum. So by fixing it, they now can do that. So basically, it's like saying they by turning it down, they reduced it by 20 bhp. So it's not any new found development that gave them extra performance or anything like that. So I think people misread that statement because it was the same for Mercedes. Because there's rumors that their reliability fixes and tweaking the software meant they've gained and something like 13 to 15 bhp. But again, it's what they already had, but they just couldn't use it.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly what's happened. But I guess my worry is that if it's true that last season that they down tuned it by, let's say, on the high end 30 horsepower, and that this year
Mm-hmm.
they're able to completely unleash that 30 horsepower because they found reliability somewhere. I mean, that could be really problematic on those tracks with long straights, because that would mean the Ferrari would be very fast. Because last year, I would argue that especially the first half of the season, the Ferrari was easily keeping up with the Red Bull down some of those big
Yep.
straights, and so that's a bit of a problem. And then lastly, I just want to say, I really hope that we haven't really heard exactly what's happened to Lance Stroll. I mean, I've heard rumors it's like a broken arm, an injured arm,
I
whatever.
heard he broke both wrists.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, I really hope he's gonna be okay. I hope he's not permanently injured, or that it ends his racing career or anything like that. I think that would really suck.
Yeah.
So
But I
I
don't think
wish him
he'll
good
be at the
luck.
first race though. I don't think he'll be being Bahrain next
You're
week.
probably right. I mean, if all these rumors are true that he's walking around with casts and stuff,
Yeah,
that really
I think we're
sucks.
probably going to see Alonso Djokovic probably for the first four races of the season
Yeah, and
because the reports
you're right.
doesn't
You're
sound good
100%
at
right.
all.
Yeah, I agree with
Doesn't.
you. And the only other thing I just want to throw out there is, to me, the thing to watch this season is the Red Bull dynamic, because I don't know if anybody noticed today, but Perez didn't get to go out on the track at all today. It was
Yeah, I heard that Max is
That's
doing a day and a half
that's how you
straight, and
Red Bulls.
then
Yeah,
then
Max
Perez does the final day and a half. So Max is doing half day tomorrow. Then that's his testing over.
over. Yeah,
Then it's Paris for the remainder.
Yeah, and
yeah.
so I do think that's going to be interesting, because a couple of weeks ago, Verstappen gave that interview where he basically, without saying Perez's name, he said number two drivers are number two drivers because they're incapable of winning and they'll never be champions,
Yeah,
and that was clearly an
yeah.
attack on Perez. And
Mm-hmm.
and so it'll be interesting to see in the first three races of the season if Perez and Verstappen are going to be a team, or whether they're going to actually go at each other. Because if they go at each other, I think Perez is probably going to be let go by Red Bull. And my guess is they have Ricardo there as a fill-in to replace Perez. So, anyways, I'll shut up.
Yeah,
Glenn, thank you for
but
giving
yeah,
me a chance to
but
talk.
if you, okay, that's cool, anytime, man.
I love this.
But if you replace Ricardo with Perez, replace Perez with Ricciardo, what's he got? Is he not going to go in and do the same thing that
Exactly.
Perez was doing and challenge Max? So what does it really make a
Ricciardo,
difference
Ricciardo,
swapping them out?
Ricciardo can't challenge Mass. Forget it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I think in Ricardo's case, he's just so desperate to stay in F1 that he'd probably happily take
Ricciardo
a
he's
number
an
two
idiot,
seat.
man. I mean, he's an idiot and he's an embarrassment to himself, and he should be ashamed of. He shouldn't show his face in public because this is embarrassment. He left Red Bull when he was winning races to go to Renault, and now he's back at Red Bull as a third driver, where they're only going to use him to sit in the simulator or to have him in some snowy mountain doing donuts with an old RB5 or something like that. That's all he is now. Like, dude, it's a, I don't know. I'd rather go and race in a different series than go back to Red Bull to sit around to
Oh, I
do
agree
that
with you.
sort of
And
work.
by the way, if the W14 is super competitive, I think Max Verstappen will be in trouble, and it won't be despite what some people think, just because Lewis Hamilton is a better driver, which I believe Hamilton is. But I think the reason Max Verstappen will be in trouble was specifically because of George Russell, because
Yeah,
I think Mercedes has the best 1-2 combination.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think that George Russell can play a really strong defensive role. So if Lewis Hamilton can get a pole or start second, jump ahead of Verstappen, and then if Russell can either stay on Verstappen's butt or play defensive role and prevent Verstappen from passing him in order to try and compete with Lewis, then I think that benefits Mercedes. So I
I
do
think it
think
goes.
Mercedes
I
has the
think it
best
goes
combo.
more. I think it goes beyond whether beyond the point of George being able to play, play a defensive role. I think George has the ability to take points off Max on a
yeah,
consistent basis, and I
consistent
think that's
basis.
what when you look at it to Bottas, that's what Bottas like. Bottas didn't have that ability to consistently beat Max. He'd do it, on the odd occasion. But if you look at George, you saw from his drive in Spain how he wasn't backing down from him in Spain, and then you saw what he did in Brazil. So you can tell, okay, George has George has the metal to go at him. George, he's been there, he's done that, and I think if you give him the right machinery, he can take points off Max on a consistent basis.
I agree
And
with you.
remember we had this conversation last week, Kings, and I said to you what's going to also be a concern for Max is the gap between himself and Perez in terms
Mhm.
of pace. Because if Perez finds himself 3-4 tenths of
Behind
us behind Max, that's a big
Mercedes
enough
and the Ferrari
space.
are slotting in here.
Exactly, that's a big enough space to fit five other cars. So rather than starting P2, Perez is looking to start in P6, and then Max now has to fight off five other drivers. So that idea of having a rear gunner is kind of useless to him now because his rear gunner is 5 places behind him,
Yeah,
and that's going to be a
honestly,
problem
my
for him.
personal take on this is I think that, first of all, granted, Max races every other driver differently from the way he races Lewis.
Lewis,
So if you
yeah.
see the move in Spain and then the one in Brazil, you can tell if that was Lewis, Max would rather crash into them than allow him pass him or whatever. So I don't think I can use those races to judge whether. I know George is a very quick driver. He's capable of defending himself against Max if he has the right car. But I think that one thing, Max knows that if Lewis is ahead of him with a good car, it will be difficult for him to pass. But every other driver, he senses he can beat them. For example, Charles, for example. That's why I feel he races them differently because he always know he will beat his time. And then when the pit or somewhere in between, he can just unleash the car and then move forward. But with Lewis, there was a race where Lewis was, I don't remember the position he was. Max was worried about Lewis than he was about the person behind him, basically. So that's the kind of fear he has for Lewis. So when it comes to, say, George, for example, I think he races them differently. But if this car, the 14 is very competitive, I would like to see the dynamics if it changes with Max, the way he raised, say George.
Yeah, obviously,
Yeah,
he's gonna be he's gonna have to change his approach. But as I said, the thing that he's gonna have to worry about now is it's not just one Mercedes driver.
Yeah, that gap.
He's gonna have
Yeah.
to worry about two,
Well,
because the
and
two
just
guys
one
are
other
capable
thing.
enough to beat him, to
Yeah,
take
on
points
a
off
given
him
day. Yeah, on a
consistent.
given day.
Just
Yeah.
one other thing. One of my other worries about Mercedes, and this happened, I saw it a lot in the second half of the season, and it affected both Lewis and George, was they have to have a much better tire strategy now, because we saw that in multiple races where, they were out on hards, everyone else was on softs, or they were on mediums and everyone else was on softs. And they got to get the tire strategy nailed down.
I think you have to caveat that in the sense that because
There
they
was
didn't
that
have
one.
pace,
The car. No, the car
because
was
they
the
didn't,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, because they didn't have the outright pace to challenge someone
Yeah.
on pace.
They had to
They
do
had to
something
play. They had to
different.
do something else. So you
Yeah.
have to, and the only way you can do that is by going
Tire strategy.
alternatives. Case
Yeah.
in point, Zandvoort. The only
Yeah.
reason why Lewis had a shot at winning Zandvoort was because he was going to do one stop less. So without the safety car,
Probably would have still done, but I would be shocked if he
yeah,
had.
without the safety car, Max would have needed to pass both of them on track to win the race.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's because he was going to do one stop less. So they had to play in that
Around with the
regard.
tire strategy. Yeah.
So if they're genuinely on pace, then
You could just
it's
mirror your opponent like Red Bull
yeah,
are doing. Just mirror them. What they do,
it's
you
going to
repeat
be a
it. Your
different thing.
perfection. Yeah.
So now their strategies can be a bit more. At the same time, it can be more aggressive, but also be more conservative.
Yes, just watch what your opponent is doing. If they are pitting, you pit the next lap. It's simple as that. It's similar to what Red Bull was doing to Ferrari at the beginning when they were almost apart. You would just say, okay, Ferrari pits, they wait one lap later, they pit. It's just simple because you have the pace to actually do that. If you don't, that's where the problem starts from. You start thinking of timing strategies and all that stuff.
They have to do something with the pit stop, man. Sometimes it's very slow.
Yeah, I mean I think here's the thing. I think Mercedes, I think they err on the side of caution when it comes to pit stop. I
Yeah.
think they're happy with 3 second pit stop.
Yeah, average.
I think I think they're happy with a average 3 second pit stop.
Yeah.
But the problem with that was at that time they had the pace, so they could be happy with that sort of advantage. That 3 seconds, so they can afford to give up half a second to a Red Bull because they know they had that
They can claw it
pace
back.
in hand. So by the time, if they were leading, they had big enough margin. So even if they lost half a second, it won't really impact them that much. But it did. But it did screw them in France 2021 because but I just think but I agree with you. The pit stops need to be a bit better. They need to kind of like, let's try and get it average 2.5 seconds, because it's not like they can't do it. I think they can do it, but I just think they just rather err on the side of caution.
Yeah,
But
because
you
again, the
can't.
car was heavier this last year, so they were trying to pull caution into it too. Because then you try to move a heavy object, a car like that. If you don't put beauty in caution, if you made a mistake, you are going to stay there even longer than maybe originally planned. So, I don't think the pit stop were really that bad. These were the points that were given away in the pit stop were not that huge. It's just that the car, the dead W13 wasn't working, so we could
They
still
keep
see that.
but they're doing, they're benchmarking it against Red Bull, and
Mhm.
because Red Bull has consistently had quick pit stops. I mean, they have the record for less than 2 second pit stop.
Yeah, that was
But
about once, and they also had the mass issue where they had a long pit stop, and I don't think Mercedes had
Canada,
that last
that
year.
was us quarter.
It was
Quarter.
Scotland,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, hold on. All right. Thanks. What's that? He's gone, isn't he? The common whatever it is. Anthony, what's up? Oh, that was Javon. Sorry, got wrong person. What's up,
Good
Anthony?
evening, good evening, gentlemen. How's everyone doing?
Hi, Anthony.
It's the day before the weekend.
Today was very interesting. Very interesting. It's good to see that the car is stable. Um, No bouncing at all from what we could see. I think it was a bit bumpy. Was it turn 1 and turn 12? From
Yeah,
what turn sort
Byron is naturally a bumpy track, so I
Hmm.
wouldn't, you know.
I think what's going to be very interesting is tomorrow to see what performance this car's going to have, because I know today was about making sure that the car's stable, that there's no issues that they had from last season. Because I listened to Toto and he said we knew from the Bahrain that we was having issues. So I'm glad that they're on top of it. I just want to see what happens tomorrow. What else are they going to bring to this car going forward? Because it looked good. You know, majority of the teams like Red Bull. Red
Mhm.
Bull look like they're in a league or they're flipping own, but it's just like I was saying this from last year. Is like this team have just been penalised with a cost cap, but yet still, because they got one of the best technical directors out there, they're just like in a league of their own. Like Verstappen was just setting time after time, and I was just like, "Are you
Yeah,
lot
but
serious?" No,
they had new with the 8 years Mercedes one,
Yeah,
so
let's
I
not.
mm,
mean,
Mm.
you know what I mean. I think as great as New is, people seem to think like he's unbeatable and
Yeah,
he's infallible. There's
yeah.
no one can design a car better
mm,
than Adrian. Like, dude, he spent the last 8 years trying to beat Mercedes.
yeah, I know,
Yeah, they want to think
So,
it's the engine, it's not the car
I
design.
know,
Yeah, that's
but
I
what.
but
know.
when they became common par,
Mm,
Mercedes brought one upgrade for the whole entire year, and
They still
Red Bull
have
were
to,
bringing
yeah.
upgrade after
yeah,
upgrade, and
yeah.
we all know how that panned out in the end. But
Tomorrow, for tomorrow, I don't think it will change. They're still going to start working on it. I think Mercedes generally they don't look for lap times in preseason.
yeah,
The only thing I can say, maybe on Saturday evening, I think Lewis is driving Saturday evening.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Yeah,
finishing up.
that
He's
might be
finishing.
when, because that will basically that will be make quali on next week. So they might want to just try and see how the car will behave as light as possible, and that's the only thing. But I don't think they will be pursuing that. I think they'll still stick with the plan.
Nah, I don't think you're gonna see. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna
No,
see any of this
no
glory,
performance
this
glory run that.
Aston
No,
glory
no,
run
yeah, they
to
don't
say,
do that.
okay, this is what we have, sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, you're not gonna get, you don't win. I mean, if it was about
You
that,
rather reserve it for Q3
Ferrari
in
would have
Bahrain,
been
yeah.
testing world champions the last god how many years, because
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think tomorrow what I'm looking to see is, are they gonna bring any new parts
Yep, the
to the
wing, the
car? And I
rear
think
wing, the front wing.
that's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
I think the front wing.
The
I
front one,
think the front wing.
it's already on it's
Front
already on the
wing is
car.
new. It's a new,
Yeah,
but it's the rear wing I'm more concerned about,
Yeah,
because again,
yeah,
that looks
yeah,
exactly like the one that ran last year, and that's kind of like I think that's the Monaco wing.
yeah. It's the highest downforce wing they have. It's
yeah.
basically higher on a track like that. That was
And I
crazy.
think, and going back to what you said, Kingsley, if that is indeed the highest they're
That is
running a
why I
really
am
high
bullish.
downforce
Yeah.
package,
Mm.
and
They were good doing that
the
lap
way they
times.
are right now, then you
Yeah.
can say, okay, then,
That's
but
why I am actually bullish, because the level of downforce they were running today and they were still able to do those quality lap times. That tells me there's something inherent in W14
because
basically.
last year
Uh,
they said one of the things that is what the plan for them last year was, because it was about their numbers gave them that they were, gave this magnificent number. So it
yeah.
was about they were going to run smaller wings
Yeah.
on the
Mm.
cars last year, but
Mm.
because of the whole situation, they had to come up with a bigger downforce,
Yeah.
bigger rear wing to work with. Because if you notice, they didn't have a. I think it was the one wing they had that they just chopped up.
Yeah, they start cutting just
They
to reduce
didn't have
the
a specific wing for low downforce or medium
height. Yeah,
downforce
no,
track.
they
Mm.
don't.
So it
Mm.
was either that big wing, and then they just
The cuts
cut
from
out
it. Yeah.
piece,
Mm.
and
But it
then they
went
change it
different.
and put a gurney flap on it
Mm.
and so on. So I
The
want to
wing
see
looks
what they're
different from
gonna
last
bring.
year.
And
Mm.
and if you read that article, oh God, I think it was Jonathan Noble wrote it. I think last week. I think it was last week we wrote it, and he said, if you look at the car, where the car was good was in high speed. corners. Where it was really bad was in slow
Close.
to medium speed corners, and I think and again, that was a sign of,
But which is actually a flip, because I remember in Spain, Mercedes they were actually getting most of their lifetimes from medium to high speed corners. Where the
Mhm.
straights was where the Red Bull was basically decimating them.
Yeah,
Basically.
I think if you know what, funny enough, if you go back and you look at the numbers for last year and you
Yeah.
compare it,
Mm-hmm.
majority of the lap time loss is on the straights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Majority of the
Yeah.
because if you check the performance over all various speed corners, low, medium to high speed,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you the variance is no more than probably a tenth.
Yeah. Yeah.
No more than a tenth.
I think
On the
Lando
straights,
actually said it in one of the races where he said, "Why is everybody surprised that Mercedes are quick? That they have been the best team in medium to low to medium
exactly.
corner. They were very good at it. You know."
Yeah, I mean, it's you're talking about because when it was just the straight where they were losing all of that time, and they pretty much said it. We're getting killed on the
In the
straights.
straight, like
Yeah,
the
but it's not
drag.
the wings.
It's
It's
just
not
too
the
much.
downforce in the wings. The reason that they were playing around with the rear wing and the front wing as the season progressed was because, let's be honest, the floor of the W13 was a disaster, right? So the Venturi tunnels,
Yeah,
the way that they were moving air through the body of the vehicle and out the back of the car was creating the porpoising. And so the reason Red Bull had such a dominant car, and I got to give them credit for that, is because the guy who designed their floor, he actually, like, I've read in multiple sources, he went back to the old ground effects cars of Formula
who
One
is that? Adrian Newey?
from he went back and read all the old studies and reports from Formula One cars in the late 70s when they first introduced
He also
ground
actually,
effects cars.
you have to remember he did his thesis
His
in
thesis, yeah,
university
his
on
master's
ground
thesis
effects.
was on ground effect. Yeah.
On ground effects, and his first this was last year's
He was his
car
first design
RB18.
car. Yeah, on it. He
Well,
hasn't had design a
was
ground effect car.
Yeah,
he did design a ground effects car, but that was in the American. I don't know.
Not in
I
Formula
don't
One.
remember.
I would say, yeah.
No, this was his first F1 ground effects, but he did do. I got what I think it was called Champ Cars, Indy Cars, or whatever it was called at the time. I think it was in 1988 or 89. He
Okay.
designed his first in
Ground
America
effects, yeah.
because that's where he went first. Went to America and then he came back to Formula One. So, but as you said, one of the issues again with the drag, because they had to raise the ride height of the car, that also induced further drag
Oh
because
yes,
it
that's
was
what.
designed to run at a specific ride height, and because you can't run it, and they had to give up on that plan. They had to give up. So by raising it, it induced further drag, which
Drag,
basically
yeah.
there was nothing else they could do about
The only
that.
thing
They
they
were
could
pretty
cut
much
was the rear wind and the wind. That's
yeah,
it.
and they were pretty much stuck with it for the entire year. There's
Yeah.
nothing they could do about it.
That's it.
This year, we can only hope that's been resolved.
Yeah,
That's
I'm just
better.
hoping the setup window for the W14 is so huge that they can play around with so many things and
Yeah,
still do it.
we can't have what we saw in Kota where Lewis went on that back straight 9 tenths ahead of Max, and
I'm telling
he
you.
just
And then by
he
the
just
time it came out,
he just breezed
it
past him
just
like he
ate him up,
wasn't
like he
there.
wasn't
Yeah,
there at all. That
we can't have that
was a
this year. So
sinking feeling, man.
yeah, it's again, it's just a matter of what we've read, what I've read so far from Toto, his comments and no shoveling, like they've got a good benchmark. They're
Baseline to work
happy.
from. Yes,
Okay, now
yes.
let's see what you can do.
What you can do,
What's
yes.
this? Because Mike Elliott, was it Mike Elliott his name is? I can't remember. Yeah, I think Mike
It's
Elliott his
Elliot,
name,
yeah.
right? It said they've already got an upgrade package in the works.
Wow.
I
That's
just hope
good.
it's a package that brings with it massive, massive amounts of performance. Because
Yeah.
I think come the end of the year, we're probably going to see them like really, really matching Red Bull. I just
I'm not
have that
looking,
feeling
but
that
end
they're
of the
going to
year is
close
too
the gap.
far. I'm thinking by the
Yeah,
middle of the year. End of the year, that's too far. By the
middle.
middle of the season, they should be there, but like competing for races and winning them straight. I
If
don't
that
think
if
that's
that
how
don't
fast.
happen, blame Kingsley.
What?
I never. If that doesn't happen, they're gonna blame you. I never said it.
No, I said it. They should blame me. No, but
Because
I think they should be competing for wins by the season because the car, for me, the fact that they can see from a generic perspective that that car doesn't purpose anymore, that tells them. I think by now they should be able to model purpose in their wind tunnel or CFD, whatever. They should be able to model it by now based
mhm.
on data from previous cars. So in designing this car, they will use that model to test it first. They say, "Man, see, okay, it's not purposing, and these are the data we're getting." And to see that manifest in real life on a real track, I can tell you, even if you're not in Mercedes garage right now, they should be like giving high five to each other. We have done this first. Now let's develop this car from here going forward.
Which
Is
is
that?
why I want. Which is
Mm,
why I want to hear what Lewis and George has
Well,
to say.
yeah,
there's an
exactly.
interesting
Yeah.
I think.
story right now that's in F1.com right now,
Mm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
and so they said today they set the car up for two specific reasons. So the first one was Russell this morning when he did his 60 or 70 laps, whatever it was. So
Yeah.
the
69
purpose that he
laps.
did this morning was to
Mm.
get the overall balance of the car.
Yep.
And then when Lewis went out in the afternoon, the purpose of his afternoon was to figure out tire compounds. So neither one of them today were pushing the W14 to its limits. So
Oh no, that's not gonna happen for
That's
now.
not gonna
yeah,
happen. Yeah,
but no, but we do know that some of the teams were doing it. So we
Yeah.
know that in Max Verstappen's case, for example, he was setting record sectors 1, 2, and 3 and wasn't letting up. So the fact that the W14 was less than a second without pushing itself, and that Mercedes is conceding. Like I'll get you the actual quote. So the quote is, um,
You can share. You can share it in those at the top
yeah,
of the
okay, I'll put it
space.
in the nest. Thank you, because
Yeah.
it really is a great read to get a better understanding
What was
of.
interesting then is that they didn't use they only used the medium, the hard tires, and the pro was it the pro?
They use the
Yeah, the medium.
medium.
No, they used the medium and they used the hard tires as well. Lewis used the hard
Hmm.
tires and the prototype tires, and I was thinking to myself, what about the softs? I was just thinking I was watching it today. I was like, some of the teams went out on the soft tires. I was like, okay, Mercedes, they're trying to do the long run, which they always
Yeah, I
do with
think
the hard tires.
historically Mercedes has only ever tested on the medium or the hard
Yeah,
tires. It's
on the soft
never
tires.
the softer
Mm.
compounds
yeah.
That's true.
because
That's
majority of the
100%
season
true.
you're going to use the medium
Mm.
tires more than you do the soft. And I think using that tire gives you a better baseline to work with. So that's always been their modus
So, guys,
operandi.
in the nest, I posted that link. It's up there right now. It says Mercedes encouraged
Okay.
with much calmer and more stable W14 car. And so it breaks down the strategies that they were putting in place today. So this is all a really great sign for both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, because if in fact it's true, and there's no reason to believe that it's not true,
Mm.
that means that, they should be very competitive.
Yeah, because they was
There's method to the madness. So all that data collecting from
yeah
last year,
was
I'd say it has actually benefited them in some way.
because
So it wasn't a waste of
yeah
time, which I don't think it was ever going to be
because
anyway.
they
Sorry,
no
Anthony, go
because I
on.
was gonna say even when they was talking about the simulator that they felt more confident within the simulator for this year's car than they did for last year's car. And from what I was witnessed today on track today, it's just like the car almost looks planted, like the W12 than the W13. It looks planted. Like I see Lewis going around the corners and George as well. And it's like, okay, they understand the fundamentals of this car, which they was doing today, understanding the car, how it goes around the corners. Is there going to be porpoising on the straight? And from what I saw today, everything was just like, okay, it looks good. The only thing we want to see going forward now is that what is going to happen tomorrow? Are they going to continue with the same as they do today, Are they going to try to eke out a bit more performance in the car tomorrow? That's the questions that all of us Mercedes fans have, because everyone was just doing their not on the timeline to say, oh, the car looks slow. Just then it was like, look, it's testing. They brought this new package. They want to make sure that they don't have the same issues that they had last season. We'll see what tomorrow brings, because today it was a good day for them. It just felt, it was oozing with confidence to know that we weren't going to have this hard hit like we did last season. And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again. A lot of people's like PTSD. Oh, the car's bouncing. I was like,
I think put it this way, we're not gonna be sitting here and wondering, will you make it out of Q3? You're not gonna go from, are you gonna make it out of Q3
Exactly.
this week? Are
yeah,
you
Like
gonna
like
and celebrating
Jeddah last year
and
now.
rejoicing making it into Q1
yeah.
anymore?
Yeah.
So
No, but it's
I think it's like I think the general
mm,
consensus is that, it was a solid day, it was a good day. You know, let's see if they can build some. It's no matter of build from this platform. If
Yeah.
you built a base, you built your foundation, now go ahead and build your
I wonder
house.
if the engine was
So
turned. I wonder if the engine wasn't turned up to
we're not
fullest capacity.
uh,
That's the thing, because they did.
no one
They did.
no one's gonna run the engine that no one's gonna run the engine
I
at full
think. I
crank
think.
in
To be quite honest, I think Red
what.
Bull was, because the way that Max was just setting them times, I think I think they
No,
pos.
no, Red Bull is
Nah.
just
I
been
think Alonso did it.
it's just the car. Probably Alonso
Yeah.
did, yeah, because I think he probably did a glory run because obviously, it it gives you some
Mm.
headlines,
It's
you know,
Alonso. He always seeks for
Yeah, but
glory.
yeah,
I think from what they said from from what I was reading yesterday, which was on the timeline, and some of the videos that I was watching on YouTube, um, what they were saying is that they had some good data from the Aston Martin in regards to the speed that they had.
well, that they're happy with the
Yeah,
numbers. They're happy with the
yeah.
numbers. I mean, everyone is happy with the
Mm.
Everyone
numbers
is
again from
except
the winter.
McLaren. McLaren is the only one not happy with their numbers. Everyone
Everybody
noticed.
is happy with the numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers in a wind tunnel don't always
It doesn't
translate to
add up
numbers on the track.
until
Ask
you match the
Mercedes.
track. Yeah.
Ask Mercedes. So,
Ask Mercedes.
you know,
Ask the W13, not Mercedes. Mercedes did not build that car. I refuse to
yeah,
believe they
yeah,
outsourced that car somewhere to someone to
yeah.
build.
Someone
Yeah.
played a cruel joke on
Yeah,
us
that's not
last year,
Mercedes
man.
design. That shit.
But anyway, like I said, it's good, and we can only hope for upward and
Oh yes, as
upwards
far
because
as
I think
first day is concerned, it's very good.
this year's like what we saw last year, a Formula One championship needs Mercedes and Lewis.
Yep.
Because we cannot rely on Ferrari to do it.
Or
It's not
Charles,
gonna happen.
We cannot rely
True
on
words.
Ferrari.
And
That's true.
and I like and I like Charles, but I'm disappointed. But it
Oh
just
no,
feels like
Charles gives. Oh no. He has a mistake in him every 3 races, every other third race.
yeah, and that's
You
a
are going to
problem.
see him make one mistake or the other.
And that's a problem. You're not
It's a
gonna
problem for a champion. If you want to be a
you're not gonna
champion,
beat Max. You're not
yeah,
gonna
you're not
beat
going to
Max
beat
doing
Max
that.
that way. Yeah, that's just it. Yeah.
You have to be if you're gonna beat Max and Lewis. You're gonna have to be relentless week in and week out. Your bad days should be you still finish on the podium.
Exactly.
Your bad day shouldn't be you finishing fifth, sixth, or seventh.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be on the podium on your bad
On your
days.
bad days, yeah, absolutely.
And and like I said, two things is going to happen at Ferrari with Charles and Ferrari. Who's going to get fed up first? Because someone is going to get fed up, and that relationship is going to break down. Because at some point, Charles, if Ferrari don't give him the machinery, he's gonna like, yo, I signed a long term, was it a 5-year deal? That's the longest deal anyone's ever signed in Formula One. He's gonna start
I
looking
don't
at
think
that deal
Charles
like,
is a rebel like in the likes of say Max Verstappen.
what's that?
I don't think Max is a rebel like Max kind of driver. So I don't think he will walk up and say, you know what, I'm going to leave. He loves Ferrari.
Don't
Charles,
no, don't say that because
mm,
if Charles sees
and openly say
George,
Mercedes, yeah.
no, if Charles sees Mercedes give George a car where George becomes a consistent race winner, challenger, and even wins a championship, Charles is going to look at that like he came into this after me. No, sorry. I'm going to look to jump ship. And
I might
again,
be wrong, but I don't see
there's
him
going
as
to be a
that kind
seat.
of driver. That's the truth.
There's
I see him
no.
is too calm, and to his own detriment. Actually,
Don't say that. Look, there's going to be a seat available at Mercedes
at some
going
point,
into
of course.
2026 because Lewis's contract is, like I say, it's just. This is going to be his final contract. 2026
Hold on
is
a
going to be
minute.
his
Hold on a
final
minute.
year.
It's easy for all of
I
us
think
to
so.
say that, but let's look at
Say what?
Alphonse. If we look at Alonso, for example, right? Alonso, I would argue, if you give him a car like a championship-winning car, I still think Alonso is capable of winning a championship. So the reason I'm saying,
No, I don't.
well,
No,
just hold on,
no, he's not.
I don't.
just let me finish.
Let him
Just
finish.
to simply say that Lewis Hamilton's going to retire by 2026, I don't think that's the case because Alonso's still a great driver, very competitive, and who's to say Lewis Hamilton's not looking at Alonso?
No, that's not why I said. That's not what. It's not about whether or not he's competitive or
yeah.
not. I think he's just gonna. He has more things he wants to do with his life, and I don't think he wants to hang around Formula One
Like
to
Alonso.
the point like Alonso. I think
he
has so many things. He has set himself up to lead, that he can leave Formula One and not miss it.
Yeah.
Alonso can't leave Formula One and not miss
he has
it
nowhere
because he
to
has
go.
nothing else.
He has
It's that's it for him. Lewis,
I don't know why
and I
people
think that's why
that Alonso
he's gonna
being
do
in
the 1
Formula
year.
One is
Sorry?
actually. I said I don't know why people think Alonso staying in Formula One is because he has passion for something. It's just collecting the money. He has nothing else to do. Honestly,
put it this way: if you give Alonso the Red Bull, he's not gonna be.
He's not going to beat Max, for example. If you give him the Mercedes, he's not going to beat Lewis. So if you take him to Ferrari, he's not going to beat Charles. So where's he going to? I don't see any. Hey, let him think of beating Ocon first. Ocon is his teammate. I don't think he doesn't have that anymore. He's just there collecting the money. The reason why he left Aston Martin, was his where he left before, because they didn't want to give him a 2-year deal. They were planning to give him a 1 year. He didn't want that, and then Aston came and said, "We can give you that more than the 1 year," and then he left. It's just the money. That's the truth.
Why, again, I still think Aston was stupid to sign him to a long term. The guy's 41 years old. What's he gonna do? He's not gonna win you a championship. I don't care which car you give him. Alonso is not gonna win you a championship.
But like I said last time,
he's not gonna do it.
Okay, imagine now. Just imagine now. Imagine with Lance Stroll injured, who would have been doing their testing for them? Just imagine that. And you want a rookie to be doing that and give them feedback to develop this car. You see, you need experience.
You're not gonna agree on
we're not
this
gonna agree on that one.
So you might as well just drop it because we're not gonna agree to disagree.
Can I say something?
I'm not agreeing to nothing.
I'd like to say that just to be optimistic, but I'm going to be a bit pessimistic first and say, I think last year with the W13, a lot of people, like Mercedes, had this ongoing thing in the media where they were saying, the car's crap right now, but we're seeing significant potential in it, and then they strung us along until like 2/3 into the season, we all realized the fundamental thing of this thing is terrible, right? Even though there might be potential in it. So now that when what's his name, James Allison, says on these interviews, he goes, they build a car like they start 2 years before. This car took ages, and it's I think it's late in delivery, so we should expect more, right, in the near future. And they had to change certain things that they had already decided on, and they changed them a lot later than they would normally would. So the things that Elliot's talking about, updates on the wind tunnel, I think those are what would normally be on the car, but they're just a lot later. And is that good news or bad news?
I don't get you. What do you mean it would be just a bit? I don't follow.
Well, no, because when what's his name, Allison, he says they start the fundamental build of the next year's car
2 years prior.
2 years prior, right? So it makes sense that they would have started W14 even a year and a half prior. But with the performance of W13, first they had to be confident at some point last year, maybe September time, before they saw the performance in the USA when the car really started to pick up. They had to
I think it picked up before it got to quarter.
Like when?
In Spain, the car wasn't bad in Spain at all.
Spain,
Yeah.
Silverstone,
Spain.
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in
Silverstone,
Spain,
the car
Spain,
shone at Silverstone. Let's be
Exactly.
honest.
Yeah.
The W13 did great in Silverstone.
Of course it did. Yeah.
right, but Silverstone, I think, was one of their tracks that they were and Spain, one of their tracks. You know that chart of doom that they talk about. Those were the tracks that it was meant to look good on those tracks, but up to Kota, it wasn't meant to look particularly good at Kota. So when it looked good at Kota, they were like, oh, okay, these and at Kota is when.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah,
because I remember they were saying
Kota
Kota will be the track that will really suit the Mercedes.
No, because it had there were certain bumps in Kota in Sector 1 and that really long
the bumps was the only
straight.
thing they were worried about, and the part of the track was already relayed by the time we got to Kota, for example.
No, but the thing is, when they
was the track not relayed? Was
the updates that they brought to Silverstone, as mentioned earlier, they hadn't even been tested. So the ones that they brought to Kota are the ones that had now finally correlated with the data that they had prior, and they were like, okay, now we're definitely heading in the right direction. Because anyway, and then then they had to change.
Look at it this way: Lewis had 5 straight podiums, which I believe started in Canada, Silverstone, Austria, France, and Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
So that showed you that the car was actually performing.
However,
better.
you can make a case on those podiums, most of them, that it was luck had a part to play in it.
No, which one? Which one?
But luck is always part of Formula One.
Humor me for a minute. Which of the podium was luck?
Okay, run me through. Okay, so France, he was number 2. He would have been 3, right? Because he kept Perez off. I think that was his best performance of the season. What do you call it? Hungary, Charles, they screwed up his strategy. Silverstone.
Hungary. George, I think, won pole.
You need to look at Hungary
George
again.
was on pole in Hungary.
His podium was genuine pace.
Okay.
There was
it was a double podium in Hungary. It was a double podium.
They had a lot of confidence in the car in Hungary. There was no luck or no screw up whatsoever in Hungary.
No, come on. The first 2 stints that Charles did before they put him on that hard tire, he was quicker, right? Am I wrong?
But Lewis was on pace to be on the podium anyway.
But that's been the problem of Ferrari.
Lewis didn't get on the podium because of what happened to Charles.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been the problem of Ferrari the whole year. They had the quali pace, they had the 1 lap pace, but they were never able to match that during the entire course of a race. So in Hungary, there was no screw up, there was no luck. Both Lewis and George, they put in a solid effort. George got the first pole for Mercedes in Hungary, and there was absolutely nothing you can say that there was some luck or maybe some bad luck for other drivers there.
So going back
Don't
to
put
the issue though, just one second.
Okay,
but
people, why are we litigating the W13, for example? I think we've moved past the W13.
No. So that's what I was going to say. Going back to my point that I was making, I'm probably wrong. So you guys are saying the car showed potential way earlier than Kota, so then they'd made that decision before that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was the first part of my point. And anyway, my point now is hopefully, God, we have a good basis with the W14, and we can, I don't think anyone, as you guys said earlier, can beat us in upgrades and update, and most importantly, optimizing the setup of that car towards the last third of the season. So my second point is Red Bull. I think Peter Windsor had a point. It might not be completely true, but he had a point when he said Red Bull have hit a development ceiling with that car, right? Don't you guys think? Because if you look at the upgrades that they had for RB18 throughout last season, there was nothing significant. The biggest thing was that side pod change in Bahrain testing, right? Was it day 2 or day 3 that they introduced it? The other upgrades, unless we didn't see anything in the floor, which is the most important part, I might say, and the floor did look the most advanced out of any other floor. They brought leading edge components. They changed the what they call it now, the bench on the back of the engine cover, right? They had menial front wing and rear wing upgrades, and then they changed the beam wings, but that was like everybody did that throughout the season, depending on the drag level of the racetrack. And they've come back this season. It's an evolution, yeah. They've really just brought down the weight. So there could be something there where maybe Newey came up, because they said he's on 50%. He's only 50% there, right?
Involved this year, yeah.
Right. He gives them the basis. He works his little old hair off, does the basis,
He
gives
has
it to
no
them,
hair.
and then these guys, they develop it, but they can't really push it any further. This year they've come in. The car looks great, which is not very difficult. It's pretty much the same car from last year in terms of they'll put it on the tester rig. They'll set it up same way they set it up in Bahrain last year.
Yeah,
Max
but
will be
the
very
thing is,
confident.
I don't know. I'm not ready to agree with that point about them hitting the development ceiling, because this is a second year in a brand new formula. So to hit the ceiling that soon in the second year, I'm not
Maybe,
sure.
yeah,
I'm not
maybe not
sure
the
about that. I
ceiling.
think that's a
Maybe
bit
not.
exaggerated. I
Maybe
think
not.
he
No,
probably
No,
is
I
saying.
think I think I
I think
think
it's more of he thinks they're going to be affected by the reduction in the wind
and
tunnel time
CFD,
that they've
yeah.
got. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that's what he
But
means. But in
but
terms
the
of
reduction in wind tunnel time, as important as that is, it really comes down to so where I just want to take this back a little bit is when everyone was questioning the W13 last year.
Daniel, I'll come to you in a second. Yeah,
The
Karen.
W13, in theory, going into last season, was in fact going to be the fastest car according to the sim testing, right? The problem wasn't the podless design, right? The bouncing was because of the Venturi tunnels in the floor. They completely messed up the design of that.
I
So
don't think you can say. I don't think you can say they completely messed up the design, because everyone encountered it was it was something that no one envisioned would have
but nobody
knew
had
of.
porpoising as bad as the Mercedes in the first half of the
but
season.
everybody
Actually,
had it. The point was everybody
Everybody
had
Ferrari
it.
had
was worse.
porpoising, but
Now,
Ferrari
for,
is
not
still,
for,
to
for,
the
Ferrari is
actually,
still,
Ferrari
Ferrari
was
was
worse.
worse.
Ferrari is still
Ferrari was
worse.
Bro,
And
worse.
even today,
at one
it's
point they
purposing
broke the
more than
floor in
compared
the
to other cars.
Mercedes.
Okay, hold
No,
on. Okay,
Ferrari is the
we're
worst.
speaking over each other. All right, Clinton, hurry up and get your
Yeah,
point
so
across, and
so
then
the
I'm going
thing
to
is,
Daniel and Cameron.
assuming that they have figured out the Venturi tunnel issue, that in combination with the podless design should in fact give the W14 a serious high speed advantage down the long straights, unlike last season.
I
Well,
agree. I think I agree with that, Clinton. I think if I could before do you know what? You're I think you're right. The only difference, and you said every other car had it, but they pushed too far in the direction of extracting performance with pushing that car to run as low as it can. They tried to extract most of the performance from that area, while other teams, I guess, had other outlets where they could go to. And I think that's where the problem came from. And if you're right about that, we could have a good car this year.
all right, cool. Thanks. All right, I'm going with Danielle, and then Cameron.
Hi guys, how are you?
We're all right. What's happening?
I am from India and we do not have toilets here. This is a
You
big issue.
you don't have what?
Toilets here.
Oh God, Thomas.
To please
All
get
right,
out of
Cameron, what's
here,
up?
even we are Indians. Please get out of here. This is
Yeah,
other
I just kicked him out.
something
Don't worry
else. Yeah.
about it. Don't worry about that. He's
Don't worry
gone.
about him. You
No,
should
he's
not.
gone.
Yeah.
All right, what's up?
We're
What's up,
talking
Cameron?
about F1
Watch
testing,
him.
not toilet testing. Please go.
Oh, sorry, Sid. Is it okay? Cool. I'll go. Thanos, I just want to. I want to question you. I want to tap your
Man,
resource.
Thanos,
I,
just 1 second, Cameron,
Sid,
before
Sid,
you
Sid,
start.
Sid,
sorry,
Thanos,
Sid.
Sid,
I
at least
didn't.
you can kick
Sid,
him
hold on.
out, yeah.
Yeah, he's gone. He's
Sorry
gone. All
for
right,
the
Sid, sorry.
Indian Max
Go on, Cameron.
Verstappen.
Hey, come on, guys. Cameron has the mic. Go on.
Appreciate it, Thanos. Thanos, listen, I've come in late. I'm on a long thing, but I just wanted to pick your brain and tap your resource and get your overall vista on first testing, especially from a Mercedes perspective. How did you read it? You optimistic, pessimistic? What are your takeaways, bro?
Well, I didn't really get to watch much of the testing. Like I said, I probably watched about half an hour because I was at work today between two different offices, so I didn't get to see much. But from what I saw on Twitter and the comments from Toto Wolff, and speaking to Kingsley just now, the car is much better. The base compared to what we saw last year, this time, it's miles better. There's no porpoising as per Toto Wolff. They have a much better baseline to build from going forward. So, I've always said I believe this year they're going to be far more competitive than they were last year, and they're going to be potential title challengers. So I'm not going to change from that now.
You think they'll be title challengers then?
Yeah.
Let's go. Love that.
I'm on the side of optimism.
Let's go.
I'm not gonna say that.
I want you to bottle some of that and sell it to me, Thanos, man, because
but you're not gonna buy it. You're not gonna buy it because you don't do optimism. Because I've been listening to and you keep you're going after Mercedes, and I'm trying to figure out why. It's like, what annoys me is it's the constant side pod. Like, come on, the side pod is not the concept. That's not the concept of the car. That's just the skin. That's the exterior. The concept is a bigger thing. The side pod makes up probably like 1% of what the overall concept is. Because if I remember correctly, I remember James Allison said, I think you design a Formula One car from the front backwards. Because the front is where that first impacts the air. So you have to condition the air from the front backwards. So you build from the front backwards. That's leave it, Cameron. And they've said it so many times.
Thanos, I hear what you're saying, but I suppose I am erring on the side of caution and being very mildly pessimistic, if not just because it's a coping mechanism for the disappointment that I had last year, expecting them to be back and Lewis to bang that eighth. But I think what I'm hearing, and it does sound negative, but what I'm hearing largely from the grapevine and out of Toto as far as his body language and whatever is, let's chill out. Let's manage our own expectations. And as far as the side pod, you're right, Thanos, technically. I hear everything that you're saying, brother, and I can't. Or none of my arguments against side pod can stand up in court. I hear you. But when I put my common sense cap on, all I know is this, right? There needs to be, I want to see some material upside in performance terms from Mercedes having those side pods this year, because I didn't see it last year.
But we did see an upside in performance last year, because if you check the second half of the season, if I remember correctly, the person who scored the second most points after Max was Lewis.
You're right, Thanos. They improved as far as their trajectory. Of course, they improved over the course of the season. But all I'm saying about the side pods, if you're going to do this big side pod thing, then I kind of want to see, like, maybe it's me just being nuddy and not understanding, but I want to understand the methodology, the MO behind having them side pods, because we know for a fact that there is material downside from having them side pods. For example, cooling. For example, managing the outwash on the back of those front tires.
No, but you see, and that's the thing that in some ways kind of annoys me. And you annoy me with this, Cameron, because there's so much information out there where Mike Elliott, James Allison, all these guys have spoken about the concept, and I've said, look, the side pod basically it doesn't operate no different than say the double 11 or the double 12. It doesn't really create the idea that it creates drag and this whole thing about the front wheel. That's not what caused the drag issue for the car. It wasn't the side pod. It was the fact that they had to raise that, because again, it's ground effect. Your performance comes from the floor. And if the car is designed to run at a specific level, and because you can't do that because of the porpoising, and you basically raise it, and then you're running the biggest possible wing you can just to balance it, to compensate for the porpoising. Obviously, it's going to create drag. It's not the side pods. Does it create a bit of drag? Yes, but not to the effect where people are like, oh, the side pod is why it's so slow in a straight line. It's more than that, and they've explained this on so many occasions. Mike, I believe there's even a video. I think it was oh god, a Beyond the Grid interview with Mike Elliott, and they talked about this. It's the whole side pod thing it's what do you call it? It's like a red herring. They said it, yeah, misnomer. They said it last year. They said, look, the thing is, the thing is, they literally said, look, we can put a Red Bull style or a Ferrari style side pod on our cars. It's not that big of a problem because it's a cosmetic sort of thing. The real the real workings where the performance comes from is it's the internal layout and the floor. That's where it is. The side pod is just a small part of the whole thing. And they've said this on so many occasions. And that's why they've not abandoned the concept because they know for them, they see, look, there's inherent performance there. If they get it right. And again, one of the things that caught them out last year, again, was suspension. Because of the porpoising, the suspension travel, it was basically fixed in, so they couldn't do anything about it. Now they've kind of addressed it. They've still stuck with their belief, and Mercedes has always plowed their own path. They've never been the team to say, "Oh, we're going to follow that guy's concept." And no, if you look at them, they've always did their own thing. I remember when they switched to the 2017 cars, everyone is saying, "Oh, Mercedes has the longest car on the track. It's the long wheelbase car is the reason why it's this and all of that." And they didn't deter from what they were doing. They carried on. They did stuck to their guns because they believe in what they were doing and they were successful. Last year was a blip. It is what it is. It's like, it's.
So what's all these rumors from Ted Kravitz about they've got a
Ted
plan
Kravitz needs to
B?
shut up. You can't have a plan B in an
Oh,
era where
thanks.
there's cars cap. Come on, Cameron. Ted is putting out there misinformation that people are